The NHL season has started and I'm continuing with my season predictions, and this video will focus on the Eastern Conference. And just like the Western Conference predictions video, these predictions will be stylized in the following tier list. We're going to go one division at a time, starting with the Metropolitan Division. The Carolina Hurricanes won their division last season and made a run to the conference finals despite missing one of their key players in Andrei Svechnikov. And in the offseason, they got better, adding Michael Bunting and Dmitry Orlov. I expect the Carolina Hurricanes to be at the top of their division again this season. They are arguably the best defensive team in the league and have a really deep forward group and great goaltending. Martin Necas has had a career season he can build off of, and Seth Jarvis at just 21 years old is not done progressing either. And I fully expect Peter Kochetkov to steal one of the two goalie spots at some point this season. This team is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. The Columbus Blue Jackets do have some things to look forward to this season. Progression from players like Kirill Marchenko, Kent Johnson, and Cole Sillinger, as well as the rookie season of Adam Fantilli. But at the end of the day, this team is still not going to be very good. With Daniil Tarasov out, their current goaltending tandem is Elvis Merzlikins and Spencer Martin, the two worst goalies in the league last season, though I highly doubt Merzlikins is going to be as bad as he was last year. While I do think this team is going to improve from last season, I still think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the entire league. The New Jersey Devils were one of the biggest surprise teams of the season last year, going from a bottom 5 team in the league to a top 3 team in the league and almost winning their division. And in the offseason, they improved their team by adding Tyler Toffoli. And given how young this team still is, players like Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Dawson Mercer, they can all still get better. This is going to be a fast team, they're going to score a lot of goals, and they're going to be really fun to watch. I'm also excited to see how Akira Schmid plays. He was amazing last season, especially in the playoffs. I have them just barely missing out on the top spot in their division once again. The New York Islanders last season had some trouble scoring goals. To try to fix that, they traded for Bo Horvat, who then had trouble scoring goals. And their team going into this season is unchanged, which means once again, the biggest question for this team is whether or not they can score. They do have one of the most underrated scorers in Brock Nelson, and with Matthew Barzal being healthy and a full season of Bo Horvat, it's possible that we see the Islanders' goal scoring go up. The Islanders are gonna have good defense and fantastic goaltending from Ilya Sorokin, and just on that, they're gonna be in contention for the wild card. But if that goal scoring can go up, they can do some pretty serious damage. The New York Rangers had a pretty disappointing end to their season last year, following up a conference finals appearance with a first round exit, in which they went all in by trading for Vladimir Tarasenko and Patrick Kane. And even without those players this season, the roster is still really talented. Obviously, you have the top-end talent with Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, and Chris Kreider. Vincent Trocheck provided great depth for them last season, and they added Blake Wheeler for just $800,000. They also have one of the best defenses in the league, led by Adam Fox, Keandre Miller, and Jacob Trouba, and of course, Igor Shesterkin in net. I believe this team will once again finish top 3 in their division. The Philadelphia Flyers are just not going to be good. This season is mainly just going to focus on the progression of a lot of their young players, like Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, Noah Cates, Owen Tippett, and Cam York. In addition, Sean Couturier is back after not playing since December of 2021. That's going to be pretty exciting, and I'm glad that he's back. But apart from those bright spots, this team is not going to be good. The Pittsburgh Penguins pulled off the biggest trade of the offseason, acquiring reigning Norris winner Erik Karlsson, as well as making a bunch of other additions to their lineup, from Riley Smith to Lars Eller to Noel Acciari. This team missed out on the playoffs for the first time in 16 years last season. And this season, I can't really say that the playoffs are guaranteed for them. While they for sure have the top-end talent, their defense is questionable, as is Tristan Jarry in net. He was good for the most part last season. He's going to have to be a lot more than good this season, especially with his backup being Alex Nedeljkovic. I predict that the Penguins will be duking it out for a wildcard spot this season. The Washington Capitals lineup is the definition of mid. Of course, they have one of the greatest goal scorers ever, and one of the best playmakers ever, and a few other notable players from TJ Oshie to Tom Wilson, Dylan Strome, John Carlson. But looking at the rest of this division and the rest of the Eastern Conference, there's no way this team competes for a playoff spot. But they're also not bad enough to just completely bottom out and tank. They're just kind of in the middle. And outside of watching Ovechkin chase Gretzky's goal record, I don't really see what else there is on this team to be excited about. Now we're moving on to the Atlantic Division, starting with the Boston Bruins. The Bruins had a record season last year, and then the playoffs happened. This season they're obviously taking a step back, especially with Bergeron and Krejci retiring, but they're still gonna be really good. Of course they still have David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand, and to add to that, Pavel Zacha had a career season last year, and it'll be interesting to see how he does this season as the #1 center. Another player I'm excited to see on this team is Matthew Poitras, who had an amazing season in the OHL last year and has now made the team out of training camp. The defense for this team still looks really solid, and while Linus Ullmark may not have the season he had last year, the tandem of Ullmark and Swayman is still one of the best in the league. While this team is definitely not winning 65 games again, I think this team will finish top 3 in the Atlantic Division. The Buffalo Sabres haven't made the playoffs since 2011, and were only 1 point away from doing so last year. Goaltending was a big issue for them last season, which is a shame because they scored the 3rd most goals of any team in the league. All they really needed was like 3 or 4 more saves and they would have been in the playoffs. But now they have Devin Levi, who I am really excited about. And he doesn't even have to be great this season. If the Sabres can just get league average goaltending, which I think they'll get this season, in combination with their offensive firepower from players like Tage Thompson, Jeff Skinner, Alex Tuch, Dylan Cousins, and Rasmus Dahlin, I think this team is gonna finish top 3 in their division and make the playoffs for the first time since 2011. The Detroit Red Wings made a lot of changes in the offseason, bringing in JT Compher, Daniel Sprong, Kristen Fisher, Jeff Petrie, Shane Gostisbehere, etc. But the biggest change that was made was bringing in Alex DeBrincat to help them score more goals. But even with these additions to the roster, as well as progression from Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond, I don't really see this team seriously competing for a playoff spot. Their defense outside of their top pairing is odd. Ville Husso had a real down season last year, and this defense isn't really going to make his job any easier. Given how talented the Eastern Conference is, while this team isn't going to downright suck, they're not really a threat to make the playoffs. The Florida Panthers just barely snuck into the playoffs last season, and then proceeded to go on a legendary finals run, a big part of which was due to Sergei Bobrovsky deciding to play like he was worth his contract. And when it comes to predicting how they're going to do this season, Bobrovsky's performance is going to be a big factor in that, as well as Spencer Knight, who's coming back this season. In addition to that, Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour are going to be out for some time to start the season, and with how cutthroat the Eastern Conference is, getting off to a slow start could just be the end of your season. Despite how good and talented their forward group is, them missing their top 2 defensemen to start the season and an iffy goalie situation could keep them out of the playoffs this year, although they would definitely be in the wildcard mix throughout the season. The Montreal Canadiens are gonna be a fun team. They have a bunch of young talent on the roster. Of course there's Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, but there's also Kirby Dach, Juraj Slafkovsky, Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Caden Gooley, Arbor Xhekaj, and they added Alex Newhook. Cole Caulfield had a great season last year and only played half of it, so him being healthy is going to be a great boost to this team. Overall, while I don't see them contending for a playoff spot, they are going to be a really fun and competitive team. The Ottawa Senators are going to be an interesting team to watch. Yes, they lost Alex DeBrincat, but they signed Vlad Tarasenko. They're also going to have a full year of Jacob Chychrun after acquiring him at the deadline. Korpisalo was great last season for the Blue Jackets and the Kings, so it'll be interesting to see how he follows it up this year. And of course you have your top-end talent with Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Thomas Chabot, and Josh Norris, who is unfortunately out to start the season. I think this team is going to be in the wildcard mix late into the season, even if the chance of them actually making it in are kind of slim. The Tampa Bay Lightning are starting the season without their star goalie Andrei Vasilevsky, and with how strong the East is, that is definitely going to hurt them, especially since we won't know how he'll play once he returns. But given the sheer amount of offensive firepower on this team, from Stamkos to Point, Kucherov, Hagel, Nick Paul, they have the ability to outscore any goalie troubles they may have. And of course they have a great defensive lineup as well. I think this team will easily be back into the playoffs, but they're going to have to go through the wild card to do so, which means I'd have the Toronto Maple Leafs finishing at the top of the Atlantic Division. They made some great off-season acquisitions with Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi. I'm interested to see how Matthew Knies plays this season, as well as how Joseph Woll does as the backup goalie. And of course you have the core four. With teams like Boston and Tampa expected to take a step back, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in a good spot to win their division. Of course for the Leafs, it's going to come down to how they perform in the playoffs. And those are my predictions for the Eastern Conference this upcoming season. And if I had to take the teams off this tier list and put them in order, it would look something like this. Let me know what your predictions are for the Eastern Conference in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.